Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss Article 8 of ESR, requirement to provide information. Point 1 says each licensee and exempted licensee shall notify the regulatory authority annually of the following. Who is the regulatory authority? Ministry of Economy, and there is Ministry of Economy is the one of the example, and remaining from where you have taken the license, those are your regulatory authority. What point number one say? Each licensee and exempted licensee shall notify the regulatory authority annually of the following. Point A, the relevant activity being carried out by such licensee or exempted licensee during the relevant financial year. Point B says whether it has generated relevant income during the relevant financial year. All these points we have to notify to the regulatory authority. Point C says the date of commencement and end of its financial year. Point D, any other information or documents as may be requested by the regulatory authority. Now come to the point number 2. Point number 2 says an exempted licensee. This point is specifically about exempted licensee. Point 2 says an exempted licensee shall submit to the regulatory authority along with notification under clause 1, which we have seen just before, of this article all information and documentation evidencing its status as an exempted licensee and any further information as may be requested by the regulatory authority. Like exempted licensee have to submit this notification plus all other documents which are prescribed to evidence as they can take exemptions under this notification, this ESR report or not, that they have to provide to the regulatory authority. Point number 3 says the notification under clause 1 of this article shall be made at the time, form and manner approved by the competent authority. Point number so says if we have filed this ESR notification, then from the end of the financial year for which we have filed the ESR notification, we have to submit ESR report also. Point number 4 says a licensee that is required to meet economic substance test pursuant to this resolution shall no later than 12 months from the last date of the end of the financial year commencing on or after 1st January 2019 of the licensee prepare and submit to the regulatory authority an economic substance report in accordance with clause 5 of this article. Clause 5 is the next point we will see. Clause 5. Clause 5 says the economic substance report. Here we are talking about ESR report mainly. Shall be in a form and manner approved by a national assessing authority. Who is the national assessing authority under ESR? That is FTA, Federal Tax Authority, in coordination with the competent authority, and shall include the following information and documents with respect to the licensee for the relevant financial year. Point A says the type of relevant activity conducted by it. These are we have to submit in ESR report. Point B says the amount and type of the relevant income earned by it, the amount and type of operating expenses and assets in respect of relevant activity carried out by it, the location of the place of its business, and if applicable, plant, property and equipment used for relevant activity by it in the state. Point E says the number of full-time employees with qualification and the number of personnel who are responsible for carrying on its relevant activity. Point F says core income generating activity in respect of relevant activity being carried out by it. The financial statements, a declaration as to whether or not it satisfies the economic substance test. In the case of relevant activity being an intellectual property business, IP business, a declaration as to whether or not it is a high risk IP licensee. Now come to the point number 6. Point number 6 says if we have a high risk IP licensee, then we have to provide these details also. This point number 6 is only related to high risk IP licensee. Now point number 6 says if the licensee declares that it is a high risk IP licensee, the licensee shall provide to National Assessing Authority information and documentation demonstrating that licensee does and historically has exercised a high degree of control over the development, exploitation, maintenance, protection, and enhancement of the IP asset, exercised by an adequate number of full-time employees with necessary qualification who permanently reside and perform their activity in the state, means in the UAE, to refute a determination made by the National Assessing Authority under Clause 3 of Article 7 of this resolution, and shall also provide the following. What is Clause 3 of Article 7? That says that the IP licensees have to provide sufficient information to FTA, National Assessing Authority. Point number A, the business plan showing the reason for holding the ownership of the IP asset in the UAE. Point number B says employees information including level of experience, type of contracts, qualification and duration of employment with the licensee. Evidence thus that decision making is taking place within the UAE. This point number 6 only about high risk IP licensee. These additional point high risk IP licensee has to provide while filing ESR report. Point number 7 says where a licensee outsources a core income generating activity, the licensee shall submit information evidencing compliance with conditions set out clause 2 of article 6 of this resolution. Clause 2 of article 6 of this resolution talk about what the main licensee has to do regarding outsourcing licensee. They have to monitor, control, demonstrate. They have to see the employee expenditure and physical asset in the UAE, and core income generating activity should be performed in UAE. That says clause 2 of article 6. Point number 8 says a licensee shall provide the National Assessing Authority with any such additional information, documents or records as shall reasonably be required by NAA to make a determination under Article 7 of this resolution. Article 7 is about, you seen this before, outsourcing of our work. Now come to the point number 9. Point number 9 says the regulatory authority and national assessing authority may word is the important, may not a shall, may each serve notice on a licensee and an exempt licensee requesting the provision within the period specified in the notice and in such form as is specified in the notice such documents and information as the regulatory authority and the national assessing authority may reasonably require for the purpose of implementing the provision of this resolution. Mean to say regulating authority and national assessing authority may ask for any other further documents. Point number 10 talk about The each licensee and exempt licensee who is required under this resolution to submit any information or documentation shall provide such documentation in English language also. Mean to say, they have to provide in English language also. If they are providing originally in Arabic or Arabic, then they have also to provide in English. Point number 11 talk about each licensee and exempt licensee who is required under this resolution to submit any information or documentation must retain such information or documentation for the period of 6 years from the date on which such information or document is submitted. 6 years from the date we have submitted those documents with the government. Here, Article 8 comes to an end. If you want any professional advice, you can contact me in this number, and you can like, share and subscribe my channel. Okay, thank you.